So after a decent amount of thought, I was able to not only just understand the solution, but like sort of motivate the idea behind thinking towards the solution. Because I'm going to be upsolving this question because this was the question. This is like one. I solved A through C and then I didn't solve D. So it's always good to upsolve like the one question like a later to that. That's usually enough. And I'm not just going to present like the solution facts because yeah, it's very easy to like sort of understand like why solution is true, but sort of understanding like why, how could you think like that, like how could you start with some very elementary facts and motivate the solution and sort of like the idea and the intelligence behind that solution. So like how can you motivate it, and that's basically what I really want to be focusing on. The whole solution is actually not too complicated, but it's sort of just like, okay, well, would you really have thought of that? You understand it, but do you really how can you really think of it? So I guess here's what I'll start by saying is the task tells us you're given, and it's a really interesting question, and we haven't coded it. I'm going to code it here to further the understanding, but you're given two arrays A and B of length n. Your task is to count the number of pairs of integers ij such that this is just saying that we don't want to count duplicates, so we fix one to be greater, so that way we don't count like 3 2 and stuff like that, again 2 3, and we want basically the product of two numbers to equal to the sum. So immediately I think like you can start off with this, right? You want to think about what you just said. So now look at this problem also teaches you do not overlook constraints, because this question, the solution to this problem is sort of based on the constraints, right? Like without the constraints, this might be an impossible problem. And so don't over. This is also a good question in saying like do not overlook constraints. You look at the constraints, so just don't read the problem. You have n, right, and it's bounded from 2 to 10 to the 5. And you know that a sub I is interestingly bounded from 1 to n and not just from like negative 10 to the 9 to 10 to the 9. So that's also interesting. And the same thing goes with b. So interestingly enough, we're going to see why that's interesting. Anyways, before I just jump and show you like the constraints and how they work, let's sort of think of how we could think towards that. I think one thing that's intuitive enough is that you see the product of two numbers and then you see the sum of numbers, right? The product of two numbers is generally like, if you want to think about it, you're given like this array and they're all these values are constrained to the same thing, right? So like a sub I, a sub j, b sub j, b sub, they're all values, right? You can honestly think of this as like a set of just like two n numbers, right? They're all like constrained equally, right? So to the same amount of restrictions, right? So the idea is that you want the product. So the product can't just be like as big as possible. We can't just multiply like for example, if I multiply like n and n, bro, if it's like 664, let's say n is 64, you somehow need to tell me find two numbers that are and n is 64. Find two numbers that are less than or equal to 64 and sum up to 64 squared, right? So the idea is that this product just can't just be as big as it wants to be. Like the product, you have to understand that the product is bounded by the sum, right? Because a sum obvious, because given that these numbers are all restricted in the same bounds, then obviously a sum grows smaller than a product. So then the idea is that the sum bounds the product, right? Because you notice that the sum can only be so big, and you want that to equal a product, right? And you know that the sum can only be as big as 2 to the n, and you somehow want this product to be, so therefore this bounds the product, because we want them to be equal. We want the product and the sum to be equal. This bounds the product to be less than the square root of 2n. So now these are interesting conditions that we sort of got from the input and we got from the problem. So that is looking at the constraints, and then you have this fact. Once the brute force solution would just be like, it's n squared. You can easily just fix a pair and then fix other pairs and plug it in and know of one and see if it works. That's a brute force solution. this is too slow. You start thinking to yourself, okay, so how can we make this better? Let's sort of start thinking about what this means. Can we expand on this, right? This is sort of like intuitive from the fact that, like, you know how in a if you're trying to check if a number is prime, you only have to go from square to 1 to square root n. But that means because it means that the min, if you break the numbers down to like some divisor pair, the min of those divisor pairs is no less than the square root of n, um, or is less than or equal to the square root of n. It's no bigger than the square root of n. So it's the same idea here, is that you can bound, if you've seen this before, and that's from the prime. That's why understanding, like, why stuff are true is actually good. Then it's the same idea here. You can bound the min of these. So interestingly enough, the min of these numbers is bounded by the fact that it's square root 2n. And let's first understand the fact that, like, fixing a pair is sort of like, it's intuitive to fix a pair, but like if you fix a pair, then like you like how do you not go, and sure, like, when you fix a pair, you might know, like, oh, the product is way too big in this case, and then that's like to put it vaguely, right? Like for 64, we know that, like, okay, and let's say n is equal to 64, we know that, like, okay, the product is going to be too big here, but like you only know that after checking like every single pair. Okay, that doesn't really make sense, but the idea is that, like, fixing a pair, like if you fix a pair, it still feels like n squared because you have to go through all these other pairs, and it just doesn't really, like, fixing a pair doesn't really work in this case. So one thing is, what if we fix the min of a sub I sub j? And so this is the sort of brilliant part. Instead of fixing a pair, which is what we would all naively do because that's the most intuitive, fix a pair, but then you still think in this n squared manner. Instead of fixing a pair, you realize that you can fix you realize that you can fix the min of a sub I. And this is bound, and why do we want to fix this? We want to fix it because it's bounded by the input. It's from 1 to the square root of 2n. So if we fixed a pair, we would have to go from 1 to n, and we would feel like, okay, we're still going to have this n squared solution. So in this case, instead of fixing a pair, and we got this from these constraints. This is what we got from those constraints. The motivation behind this is just, you have to, like, sort of understand that that's more intuition at that point. Uh, but instead of fixing a pair of numbers, you realize that you can fix the min of these numbers, right? Which is 1 square root of n. Just fix the min of them. We don't care if it's a sub I or a sub j. Like, that doesn't matter. We're fixing the minimum of them. Then you realize that you can actually now go through all the other n pairs and check if the a sub j value, or check if the second pair, and check if its a value is greater than or equal to the min, the fixed min. Now we have a fixed minimum of between those numbers, and now fixing that, we have to go through all the other pairs and say, okay, well, we can only take greater than or equal to that number because that's the fixed minimum, right? And it's sort of weird for there's sort of two cases. If the greater than case, basically, if we're at a pair, uh, let's say we are checking a pair P such that its a value is strictly greater. because that's for our fixed minimum. So in this case, it's actually easy. You know that this then fixes a sub I and b sub uh, I, which means, or this fixes two numbers, two other numbers, smallest smallest a, the biggest a, and one b value. So when you fix the minimum and then you go through other pairs, you know that, and you can now do it for the case where it has to be. It's weirder. It's weird to think like if it's equal to it. Just first think if it's greater. If it's greater, you know that you'll be going to like a different pair, not the same one. So the idea is that for this one, for the greater one, it'll fix it then fixes other numbers, the smallest a, the biggest a, and one other b value, and the big and this just goes and the b value of the biggest a, and the b value. For simplicity, assume that min of a sub I is n a sub j a sub I. Why can we do this? Well, it doesn't like in the because we have the equation. We have this equation a sub I times a sub j. We have this equation, right? So then, like, just without for simplicity and like without loss of generality, just assume this is. It doesn't really. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where these numbers go. It can go like for the a, it can go at you know one a is fixed. You know one a is fixed, right? And you know one b is also fixed now. Or you know both a's are actually fixed. The idea is that you know both a's are fixed, so it doesn't matter how you know the product of a is fixed. So this fixes the product of A. This fixes the product actually. So I guess like when you fix the min and you go through the other pairs, you can easily you know that it has to be greater than. We're dealing with a case that has to be greater than. The equal case is a little bit weird. It has a nuance that I'll talk about later. But if you're just dealing with a greater case, then you have to just check if the a values are greater than it. Then you know that it fixes the product. And then there is one b value that is fixed. We don't care if it's I or j. Um, just know that the second b value is uh, equal to product minus fixed b value. So with this assumption, I said uh, just assume that this is true and a sub j is greater than a sub I, and that means b sub j would be fixed. So that means we would have to check b sub I would equal a sub I, a sub j. Again, it doesn't matter. Oh my goodness, I have to. Again, it doesn't matter. So then, at this point, we reduce the question to how many pairs have are uh, basically the min of a sub I, a sub j, and uh, yes, a sub I, or like just or Well, this was the assumption. We just say um, how many pairs are a sub I, and we can find b sub I. We're assuming that a sub i's are min. It really does not matter. You can assume with all lots of generality that a sub I is your minimum. That would just keep things simpler. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's all symmetric, so you can just assume that it's that. So at this point, we reduce the question to how many pairs um are basically this. So all we have to do really is if we find the frequency of pairs, here we go. We know we can solve it basically. But what if it's equal? What if a sub I equals a sub j? Then still count a sub I b sub j. Um, b sub I. Yeah, basically. Yeah, still check something. But if we count the frequency of these pairs, we're good. Um, I think it would. I think it's using a hash map would be a pain to count the frequency of. We even need to. Wasn't like counting the frequency of hash. But wasn't that annoying? Wouldn't that time out? I feel like it's gonna time out on the code, bro. Bro, I feel like it's gonna freaking time out. Hold up, let me see what they said. Bro, I feel like it's gonna freaking time out. Or okay, so I saw in their solution that since hash maps are sus in terms of counting like the uh like counting like the number of pairs, the frequency of this, you realize since you're always fixing, you only have to count like the min a sub ij and some other b value. So it should actually work. In fact, you only have to make your array for the frequency. You only have to do this, which is actually nice. And then there's enough memory. 10 to the 5, like 10 to the 5 halves. So it's like 1.5. Um, or 2.5. Okay. Seems like works. And that's all we have to do. And that should work. Damn, this is a tricky question though. I guess the motivation is that you have to sort of do the constraints. Once you do the constraints, you can because the minimum is bounded. It's easier to just iterate from just do the test, just iterate from the minimums because there's only that many cases for where the say what is the case when the minimum is one, what is the case when the minimum is two, and then for these you can like just say go through look for all the other pairs that are greater than this. And it's a little weird if it's equal, but generally if it's greater, you can just uh, find the frequency since this find the frequency of just find the frequency of the thing, the minute of that, and it works. So I guess this idea is that it's just bounding the the smallest one, and it works because then that sets up like you can go through every other pair, and once you do that, you can actually just find it. Yeah. So the tricky part was just the and also hash maps are really sus. So I would think of not using a hash map for the pairs. I would just not think that's just really weird hashing. So just try to use an array, which is way better. Yeah. My recording. 2 plus 10, just like, I don't know, just 'cause, like, you know, more spaces never doesn't hurt. It's gonna be this. It's easier. And equal to the square root max. Uh, then we know that like f a sub I color it here. Sorry. Or can we just say or actually screw this? Why? So the men. Wait, I need to also try something. does that count? That doesn't even work. Oh, wait. Be the right answer. Just you. Okay, so it says dummy networks. Um, element is O2. Domain. I see that. Should the domain here would be. Click before. And the frequency of 2, 3. Oh, okay. It gets you. Oh, no. Forgot to unpause the recording, but I also had to do other stuff as well, like check the heat score because Miami won and is going to the NBA. Okay, who cares? The point is, this is it didn't work. So duplicates are just stupid. Oh wait, not this. Duplicates are dumb. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna uh, deal with duplicates, and they're actually easy to deal with. So duplicates would be like if yeah, I should have thought that detail out instead of like coding, because duplicates are actually really annoying because like you might and then it's like but yeah it's annoying. So I think if you do this should be easy. Cool man. Then uh, you only have to do square root max square max I plus plus yeah equal min of I arrays. Yeah, these are gonna be like equal min. So, Oh, it has some up to. Dude, I feel like it's gonna be dumb if it's like the same thing. So like if we're fixing a value, we'll just see we need this. So how many sum up to that, right? Oh, I'm not sure my camera. So say like how many of that sum up to that? Do we have to deal with the fact that like they could be the same thing? So I'm saying how much sum up to that, but what if it's the same thing? Then but that should be fine. Then for that one, I should be like how much, bro? Duplicates they're annoying too. Oh, oh, you need this. But what if they're looking the same? So it's like eight. How much went to eight? And there's like um if it's a or is it first one? But what if you how much some? Oh, and then if you've already seen it, you just don't do anything. Oh, it's, okay. I think I'm a straightforward way to deal with this. That's annoying. Yeah, that's annoying if they're the same. Oh wait, it's better to calculate the frequency as you go. It's BS. Better to calculate the frequency as you go. Yeah. It's better to calculate the frequency as you go, so that we can reach like. Oh my god. It's easy to count frequency as you go, versus like okay, I have eights, then like okay, but like that I don't want to include that one, but I want to do, but then I might go back. Yeah, it's just easier to count frequency as you go. Definitely. Um, God, why is that so much cleaner? Then just give this just genuinely is. Those are like elementary. Good fundamentals. What the fudge? Bro, what the fudge, bro? I don't know. Oh my god. Is it longs? Is it some? Is it literally longs? To use longs or something? They use longs. Is there? Where the frick do they declare law? At least we got rid of the. Can I get some like weird underlines? That it? Has longs. Pain. Upsolving is pain. This is a difficult question. That's the end of the video, guys. Man, that was a cringe reaction. I do not care, bro. This is why I killed, bro. For moments like this. Let's recap. Let's recap. That was a hard question, bro. Dude, like, I thought about like motivation and stuff, and then my implementation was really tight on memory. The first, I'm not the first time. Well, this was like when I was trying to deal with duplicates inside the code, and I realized that, bro, dealing with duplicates, it's just annoying because then you have to be like, you've already counted the frequency of pairs. It's just you realize that it's really annoying. You realize that it's really annoying. So you deal with duplicates separately, and this was just a memory because it was a very tight problem. So you can't even do this. It's a very tight problem. And this was the wrong answer. This was obviously just long. It was obviously long. Once I got that in a minute, it was obviously long. And then this was the winning submission. And this is a hard problem, but yeah, we're done. We're done. We're done. You're done. We're freaking done. Celebratory sparkling water drink for the W's. Oh shoot! I got that spilled. Okay, whatever. Oh shoot! Oh shoot! That spilled on my laptop. But the it's funny, bro. Shoot, it's not ideal. You know what? Frick it. Frick it, bro. Anyways, let's go. You realize that D is really hard, but this is upsolving. Upsolving is a fun thing. We learned a hard problem, but damn, it was like, yeah, I guess duplicates are really annoying. Or if when min they're really annoying. You just deal with them separately, and it's really easy to deal with them separately. It's like a generic problem. I don't really want to explain it, but yeah, it's just pretty annoying to deal with the duplicates. But yeah, we're done. We're done.